I am Jack's smirking revenge.
My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Welcome, everyone.
What's up, everyone?
This episode of the Movie Boners Podcast is brought to you by us, because we have recently launched the, what are we calling this thing? The Movie Boners Fan Club.
We have a fan club now. It's pretty sweet. It's super sweet.
It's we make it sound lame when you say it like that, but it is super sweet. And so if you want discounts on merch, if you want access to live streams, if you want extra episodes, if you want giveaways, if you want all kinds of cool stuff that haven't even been decided yet, but we plan to do, that's the place to do it. So go check that out. That's a lot of fun.
Super cool.
And it helps us out a lot. Helps us actually progress into what we want to do and avoid the pitfalls of kind of other monetization avenues, ads and bullshit like that. Keep it listener supported.
Make it easy for you guys. So.
Yeah. And then I guess speaking of things that are easy, let's check in on the movie draft.
No, we don't have to. God damn it.
So I'm sitting in the lead just over 3 billion now because
fucking Inside Out.
I have maintained the trend of the last 3 years of being the only one with $1 billion movie.
I don't get how it keeps working out for you like that. I don't get it.
We'll see if I make it all the way through the year like I have the last two. I think Deadpool and Wolverine is maybe the biggest hurdle, biggest potential for you to reach that mark.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, right now, Inside Out definitely blew up, which is pretty cool, I think.
No, it's not.
You're still at just over 1 billion. You passed 1 billion early June. And because you didn't have any movies in June, except for A Quiet Place Day 1, it hasn't made a lot of progress since then. So
no, it has not.
Kind of I've illustrated best by this graph, which shows it being very flat. I'm like kind of feeling rocket ship. I'm just launching.
I'm feeling the effects of karma just a little bit. I talked a whole lot of shit at the start of the year, and it's rearing its ugly head. So fuck you, karma.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Dune 2, and fuck you, Inside Out 2. Fuck you, Jake.
Fair enough. The 4 movies are also have done pretty well. Despicable Me 4 just came out fairly recently, and Kung Fu Panda 4 was pretty solid as well. So, fourth installments of family movies so far not failures as far as that goes. But yeah, I think in a couple of weeks, Deadpool and Wolverine that will be very interesting.
Yeah. Hopefully it's projected to be like potentially the biggest movie, or at least right underneath Inside Out 2. I don't think people expected Inside Out 2 to be so big. So Pixar needed a win, and I guess they got it.
Yeah, definitely on the box office side. And quality wise, spoiler alert, I'll talk about it in a second. I did see it, and it's pretty good.
You saw a new movie before me?
I saw a new movie. I saw a bunch of new stuff, so I guess we could get into that. Yeah.
Shit.
I've got a whole bunch of stuff to list off here. So, first of all, I guess since we're talking about Inside Out 2, I'll talk about Inside Out 2. It was certainly better than I feared that it would be. Like we both talked about it being an opportunity for them to make it very politically correct or progressive or woke or whatever you call it. And I don't think it went that route. I think that there's always like little hints of things, but the general story and the general message I think was very accessible. I think it's accessible for boys and girls, even though Riley's going through puberty. That can be a very different thing for girls than for boys, but I think it was very accessible. And I really liked how they did the overall anxiety aspect of it. I think it was done very well, very helpful, and a good message about it overall. And it does enough of the fun things of the. I mean, it's not going to be. Don't expect it to be on the same level as the first movie, but I definitely did a lot of enough of the similar fun little things, little gags of how they use imagination land or how they use sarcasm or just becoming a teenager kind of things. It was fun. I definitely enjoyed it. And then I watched The Watchers, which was also new.
I forgot about that movie.
Yeah. What's her name? M. Night Shyamalan's daughter.
Yeah.
I will properly credit her right now by saying that her name is Ishana Shyamalan, and she wrote and directed it. And she had done several episodes of Servant, which I liked as a show, but also kind of fell behind on. So it had a pretty cold reception as far as critics and audiences went.
Yeah.
And so I kind of knew going into it that I might not like it. But as I was watching it, I was like, oh shit, I'm going to be the only person in the world that likes this movie. It's very interesting. and I'm really like engaged, and I think it's very fascinating. There's some like cheap attempts at jump scares that don't really work, but that's forgivable. And so I was liking it for quite a long time. And then kind of the third act happens, and I can only assume that's what is turning people off about it, because it did for me. Like I started it as I was watching it, it just kind of started over explaining things, or I got ahead of where the story was, I guess, and so it thought that I didn't know all the things that I already knew, and so I kind of lost interest. I got a little boring in there, and I would just kind of stop being interested in the dialogue and the characters. So it's hard to say if I liked it or not, because I liked most of it a lot, but then just that kind of last act kind of really sucked the air out of my sails. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it was fine. I watched a docuseries called Action, which is put on by the 87 North stunt team. This David Leitch's production stunt company, and it's really interesting. It kind of starts, they bring in Keanu, they bring in a bunch of people to talk about stunts and action movie history, and then it really focuses on the making of Violent Night and kind of that whole process, and then they switch gears to focus on production of The Fall Guy, and it's all focusing on like what it's like to be a stunt performer, what their lives are like, what they need to do as far as choreographing stuff and attempting stuff. And when it comes to The Fall Guy, they're breaking records and trying to like really push boundaries and stuff. Right. So it was cool. It was really interesting, and it was cool to see David Leitch, who's now kind of at this top level role, but has such a huge background in actually stunt performing and choreographing and stuff. And there's some times, particularly on Violent Night, where people are come down with COVID and stuff, so he kind of has to step in and go back to that role of stunt coordination, and it was kind of cool to see. So if you like that kind of stuff, I think it was on Peacock or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's called Action. It was really cool. Just 6 episodes. And then the last thing for me, and I know you already know this because a movie that I watched recently, that because we were asked to do a quick send in a clip for the Revisionist Almanac podcast, and they wanted to know what our favorite movies so far this year have been, and also what movies we're looking forward to. So we both did a clip for that, and so I watched Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare because I knew of all the movies I hadn't seen yet this year, I was like, I'm most likely to love that one. And so I stuck it in, and I loved it for sure. And it was funny to see that you also had it on your favorite movie list of the year.
It's so good. Like, that movie is pretty awesome. That's high on my list for this year. So
yeah, it was a lot of fun to just enjoying the whole, not just the presentation and the style of the movie, but also the history of it being based on a bunch of like notes that Churchill had that were recently declassified and all that stuff. Very, very cool. Very cool to see. What's his name that wrote James Bond?
Ian Fleming.
Ian Fleming. He plays kind of a prominent role in the whole operation, which is pretty cool to see. And Churchill and then the whole squad. is just really, really fun and is very different than Guy Ritchie's last movie, The Covenant, which I really liked from last year. But this was much more kind of his return to just having a good time and blowing shit up.
Great, entertaining Guy Ritchie film. Like, it's just, you can't help but smile during his movies. You really can't.
Yeah, it's great so times. It reminded me of going back to like Man from U.N.C.L.E. days or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's all I got.
Man, I'm not going to lie, Jake. I would have figured you would have made it a point to see Horizon over Inside Out.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of shocked that's not on your list right now. But all right.
I know. Horizon is definitely high on my list still to see. I'm very excited for that.
Well, I didn't watch as much new stuff as I had wanted to / planned to, but I still got a few things in there. I did watch, it came out earlier in the year, but I missed it, and now it's available on Peacock, so I watched it. But I did watch Monkey Man, the Dev Patel film.
That's high on my list, too.
It's interesting. It's very interesting. There's a lot of, I really like how he incorporates, like, I'm gonna get this so wrong, so please don't. I'm sorry. Like Hinduism, I think is the primary, like his
in
primary
India,
religion. They incorporate like Hinduism stories and lore and stuff. Oh, I probably shouldn't call it lore, but get over it. Into mythology. The actual story and his character's like background, which was really cool to see. It was neat seeing how he wrote this. It all takes place in India. He mixes a lot of the Hindi with English. It's just, he wrote it pretty well. And the fight choreography is pretty cool. I give him credit.
Nice.
It was a pretty cool movie. A lot of weird turns to it, but like very entertaining, very cool fight scenes, and just a overall kind of story. And when it ended, I was like, I like that kind of story. And I'm on board with this one.
That's awesome.
So Monkey Man was pretty entertaining. I'm kind of bummed I didn't watch it in the theater just because some of the way that he filmed some of the fight scenes, because he wrote and directed this.
Okay.
Would have been cool to see on that big screen, just the way that he shot some of it. So Monkey Man was cool.
There's been really cool stories about kind of how much of himself he put into making that movie, and how many times he got injured, and how many, like, he just kept pushing past barriers and didn't even think he would get it made until Jordan Peele stepped in to help him out and like loved it.
You can tell that he was passionate about this role. You can really tell just in his performance and just the pacing of the movie. I really, really liked, because it doesn't ever try to like speed all the way through. It takes its time when it needs to. The action is fast and quick, but when it's trying to keep you in the story, it slows the pace down so that you can kind of catch up with it, which I really liked how it did that.
That's awesome.
So Monkey Man, definitely worth a watch. I've always liked this franchise, even though the third movie was not the best, but it's still entertaining. But I had to watch Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F on Netflix. Yeah. I've been looking forward to the fourth installment. I love that they got the cast back. And what I liked probably most about this movie, in terms of it's a fourth part that we don't need, that no one was ever asking for, but it's just kind of one of those like nostalgic kind of things. It totally knows exactly what it is. So they just stick to the formula of the previous three and just let the movie do what it needs to do, which
nice.
I was like, thank God you're not trying to overdo this. It's very predictable, but you don't hold against the movie. You just kind of like, oh, this is just cool. All right.
I was worried they would try to do like a legacy sequel thing where they try to bring in the next generation and pass the torch to them. And
you can kind of see where they may have debated doing
just
that.
To keep the franchise alive.
Right.
And make
but the way that the story actually unfolds and all that, you can tell pretty quickly in the writing process, they were probably like, no, we're not doing we're doing this because it's just fun to bring everyone back. And it's good to see Eddie Murphy doing this kind of stuff again. So
it's been a long time since I've seen him in a league like that.
It has. So I really enjoyed it. If you like the Beverly Hills Cop franchise, you'll probably enjoy the fourth one.
Nice.
And then just because I got tired of scrolling, I did end up watching that new Zac Efron movie. I want to say it's called The Family Affair. Yeah, the one with Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
I did watch it.
Okay.
It's like nothing special, but it was funny.
Uh-huh.
So
intentionally funny?
Both.
Okay. I can see it going either way.
Yeah, I think the best part about it is watching Zac Efron be a satire version of like action franchise actors. He totally rips into all of them while playing a super diva who thinks that he's like better than everyone, but he only has one franchise under his belt that's keeping him afloat, that everyone's kind of like, okay. Yeah, it was a cute movie. It's got some fun stuff. The biggest surprise in it was when Kathy Bates shows up. I was like, I didn't know she was... Who is getting these casts together? But if you want a movie that's just kind of like quiet that you can just watch and like relax to, it's good for that.
Okay.
That. So I didn't hate it.
Tried to get me to watch it, and I was like, I don't know about that movie.
It's not the best, but it has a few good moments in it. And then just because I've been watching it, I am watching The Boys season 4 right now because the first 3 are so brilliant, and I love the comics. Season 4 kind of sucks so far, but I guess that can happen.
Yeah. I imagine there's a lot of setup. I think the next season is the last season.
Yeah. I think season 4, they've just gotten so caught up in trying to turn it like hyper political instead of just keeping it with like the satire it already has and needs. They've just kind of gotten a little, which I know the showrunner Eric Kripke, like he flat out came out and said, oh yeah, we're going super woke, like this is exactly the direction I wanted this to go. He kind of said like a giant fuck you to fans of the show that aren't liking season 4. So I kind of want to stop watching it just because fuck him. But at the same time, like I love those books so much. I want to see how they end it for season 5.
I haven't read any of the books. Is the show pretty close, or they changed a lot?
It's so tame compared to the books, but tame is relative because the show is still hyper fucked up.
Bonkers.
But,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh,
I don't think I saw season 3. I think I just watched the first 2 and liked them a lot. And then Gen V, the spinoff or whatever, came out, and I was like, oh, I need to watch that, and watch season 3, and I never did. But
no, I never watched Gen V. I could be wrong, but I could say I don't feel at any point that I needed to watch Gen V.
Yeah, I think they said some of that
anything
was going to tie into season 4, but it's probably just like oh, look, there's that guy you recognize.
Yeah, if it did, I haven't noticed at all. So, but you know, it's still not a bad show. Season 4 is just kind of that. I think most series that run for a long time might have a season or so that kind of like takes a bit of a dip. I think this is that one. So
yeah, especially I think when they make the decision to end a series, then they're like, okay, we need to work towards the ending now, as opposed to just making something that is continuing.
There has to be a conclusion to it. But
yeah, so maybe
that was all I watched. I didn't get around to seeing like half of the new shit that I wanted to, but I think that's a good list.
Yeah, that's not nothing to sneeze at, as they say. There's one more thing that we were asked to watch. So I got reached out to on Instagram by the filmmaker M.W. Daniels, who has made this movie called Lizziehead, and it's in festivals now. Should be on Amazon Prime this October, I think, and has so far won a bunch of awards at different film festivals. Best comedy at the Hollywood Indie Film Fest, New York Monthly Film Fest, Best Feature, and was a finalist at the Cannes Monthly competition. So yeah, so we watched it. It's a short film, so only about 40 minutes long. And I know you didn't know anything about it going into it. I didn't know anything about it either. I just pressed play and kind of saw where it went. And I was a little surprised. What did you think about it?
I was going to ask you, what did you
I want you to go first. So
I always go first. You go first this time.
That's true. I was trying so hard to like put it into terms or words that made sense. I would say that as a comedy, none of the jokes really landed as like being funny to me.
Okay.
There were definitely aspects of the story or things that happened, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting. I'm curious where this goes." But I feel like most of the times that happened, it ends up being like something that the character's thinking about and like just a daydream, and it doesn't actually happen or doesn't actually matter because it never comes back. And I was like, oh, well, I don't actually know. I started getting a little confused of like, why does this matter? Why am I watching all of these things take place other than funny little asides or whatever, or catching you off guard, I guess. Maybe it's trying to play with the audience. So yeah, I thought some of the comedy and the editing choices were kind of rather cheesy. I did like the writing and the pace of the dialogue. The acting was pretty solid as far as just delivering the dialogue. It felt like real dialogue. I felt like it did that aspect definitely very well. But overall, I would say it's not for me. Because the comedy never really landed, and the drama even of the characters didn't especially interest me that much. There's a lot of it felt so the main plot of the story, once you get to the end and realize what happened, it feels kind of obvious as far as like, oh yeah, of course that character has this father issue problem,
right?
And that's also why her it's a very sex forward movie, I think you could say.
It took me off guard.
And so there's a lot of I think the characters even in the movie call it deviant behavior. And so I didn't expect any of that, and I'm not like opposed to it, but I didn't necessarily see the purpose of it either. And so if it was funny or if it mattered more, really all it just seemed to come down to is that, oh, this girl has father issues, and so thus she has all of these relationship issues, and so that's kind of what I thought. What did you think?
I was, like I always do, go in completely blind. And I was definitely taken off guard because I felt like we were kind of dropped right in like the third act already of a film. But for like the first 20 minutes, what felt like a third act also felt like they were trying to do a first act. It was very strange to me, just with how some of the characters were interacting with each other. But
yeah, some of the like things will pop up as far as like plot points, and kind of out of nowhere, not as like a twist, but as like, oh, we're doing this now, and I was very confused by that. And sometimes it doesn't matter.
I was definitely taken way off guard when like the sex scene started happening. I was like, oh, we're just jumping right into this. Okay, here we go. I found some of it funny and humorous. I like the dramedy aspect of it. I think that's what works. I think that's where its strength actually is in the dramedy. But having said that, I think this story needs to be fleshed out more. So instead of 40 minutes, I think it would have done the film more justice to be closer to an hour or like feature length. Just so that you could flesh out more of like why she does the kind of job she does, why she interacts with her mom and interacts with her friend and the boyfriend. I think fleshing out that kind of stuff with the daddy issues would have been beneficial.
Yeah.
The Dom stuff definitely took me off guard. I was very like, this is okay.
It was at that point where, yeah, she's about to poop on this guy's face, and I was like, we got sent this link that's a private link on the internet to a video, and I don't know this person, and I don't know where this is going. Luckily, they bail out of it as a joke, and I was very grateful for that.
I think it has a lot of potential. It reminded me of like Judd Apatow style, where you said it, the dialogue feels more real or natural. And just the way that it was shot and all that, it felt Apatow-esque, which I really like. But yeah, I think the story has a lot of really cool potential. It just needs to be fleshed out more. So I didn't hate it. I was just taken very off guard by some of it. And the Dom stuff really weirded me out because it might be TMI or whatever, but like not for me. So
yeah, I think not for most people. It's very outside the norm, not necessarily abnormal, but yeah, definitely different. I don't know if I was like thinking about it too much because I was like, where is this going? Where is this going? What's happening? And in the beginning, there's a reference to a thing, sex magic, and I really thought that was going to be the whole plot of the movie, is that the sex magic's going to happen and he's going to cast a spell on her and then she's going to be in this altered state. And so I was confused. I was waiting for that thing to happen. I was waiting for her to start behaving strangely because he cast this spell on her, and that doesn't happen at all.
No, there's nothing magic in it at all.
No, it's a little disappointing. So maybe that's where my disappointment comes from. But yeah. So I think if you're interested in that, I think that I'm not saying don't watch it, because we always say we're not critics. We're just kind of like movie companions. And if you like this thing, then we hope you enjoy it. And if you don't, whatever. So I think if you like British, it's not even like British humor. It's not like dry humor. It's just like a normal comedy, but they all have British accents. And then it is very kind of sex forward, dominatrix forward movie, and kind of, I guess there's not even like a romance aspect. It's really just, I wouldn't call it like a romantic
kind of film. There's a couple romantic moments ish. No, I think what the overall story is, and I could be wrong, but what I took from it was diving into what father abandonment issues can actually do to someone and the effects. It kind of reminded me of like Trainwreck with where like her daddy issues, it wasn't father abandonment, but it's like horrible father being the role model in her life. But it kind of reminded me in that lane. So like I said, if it was fleshed out a little bit more, I think the movie has a lot of potential to it. So, yeah, it may not have been our favorite thing to have watched this last week, but I could definitely see people really getting something out of it. And if you do, that's awesome. Obviously, people have. It's won a ton of awards and awesome. So,
Yeah, so I think if that sounds up your alley, or at least is intriguing and you want to check it out, it sounds like they're trying to get it or plan to get it on Amazon Prime this October.
Yeah.
Once the festival circuit is done. So definitely check that out.
Keep your eyes open for that.
Okay. Are you ready to get into our top 10 revenge movies?
Oh, yeah.
I've been pretty hyped for this episode for a little bit.
While. Yeah, me too.
I think it was, I'm trying to remember. I had a note, but now I can't find it. A follower on Instagram and someone that we interact
on
with.
Instagram.
Instagram, yeah.
We're on Instagram, everyone. If you didn't know, it's all about that Instagram.
Oh, gosh darn Instagram.
We are sorry for that.
I don't know who that was or what that was, but
that was odd.
It is what it is. Somebody on Instagram, if you're listening, I'm sorry, I don't remember who you are, but they said a while ago, hey, have you ever done a top 10 revenge list? And I said, you know what? We have not, and we should. And so I moved it pretty high up our list of episode topics because we have a lot in the backlog.
And I got
because I thought it sounded really fun. Yeah.
Because it is a lot of fun. Oh, I love revenge movies.
And I feel like it was a difficult list to put together because I feel like a lot of movies have a revenge component to them, but I still wouldn't qualify as a complete revenge movie. Like that's not the main character's main motivation. Sometimes they'll seek revenge, or even the villains. Sometimes I had a couple where I was like, well, from the villain's perspective, they're trying to seek revenge on the hero or whatever. But I tried to keep it in the most pure form possible, where the main character is seeking vengeance as a main motivator of their character arc.
Yeah. I feel kind of bad for my list because I have a couple that rely on deception, and I
So you're
have
gonna
to
spoil the shit out of them?
Yeah, I have to spoil a couple, and I feel really, really fucking bad for it. But
Okay.
there is no way these movies couldn't be on this list because they are amazing. So I am sorry ahead of time. Even though these movies are like, one is almost a decade old and the other is like 13 years old.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so they're older films, but you know me. I don't like spoiling shit, so...
Yeah, I'm sure you'll warn people as we get to them, which ones they are.
I will.
Yeah, that definitely... I mean, that happened a lot with our villain list as well, or femme fatale lists, especially.
Especially the femme fatale one.
Those femme fatales can be very sneaky. Yeah, revenge is a topic that I think that justice is kind of like an innately human desire, like love or any other thing, that if somebody is experiences an injustice or is wronged in some way, and there's no actual avenue to seek, satisfaction in that situation, they're kind of prevented from it for some reason. I think it's very quick for the audience to get on their side and want to see them seek that restitution or whatever. So I definitely think that revenge movies are fun for that reason, because it's very easy to get very emotionally involved with them, particularly depending on the scope of the atrocity that happens that makes them seek revenge, which is often or can be very significant. I think that it's a fun thing to kind of see. And then also there are fun movies with different spins on that or twists on that, or what would really happen if you try to do that. And I have a couple of those. I didn't have as many old movies as I thought I would. Only one of my movies is from the early 90s, and the rest are later than that. So
yeah, me too.
A lot of 2000s and 2010s.
So do I. God, I have one movie from like early 90s. All the rest is after.
I had a couple on my list that I hope you don't have, because I really feel like they're unique and special, and I don't want you to steal them also. But then I have other ones that I will be disappointed if you don't have also.
And I have a couple on mine. One in particular that I hope you don't have, that I get to tell you about this movie.
Okay.
But it's also one that I fear you've never heard of or haven't seen yet, and I don't want to ruin it for you.
Oh, one of those. Okay.
Yeah.
This will be fun.
Yeah. So this will be an interesting one to get into.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. I guess we just get into it.
Let's just do this, man.
Okay. Do you want to go first? Should I go first? I don't know.
I'll go first this time.
Okay, you go first.
I can't remember who went first last time. It doesn't matter.
Nah.
All right. So my number 10 is one that I feel got kind of forgotten about completely, because this writer and director focuses on one genre in particular, and this is not in that lane. And I think it's one that people dismissed, didn't go and see, didn't really think anything of it, but it's one that I think is one of his best, and that includes all of his horror films that he's written and directed, but this one I actually think is better than a lot of those. And anytime you've got Kevin, the older I get, and every time Kevin Bacon pops up into a film, I'm always like, fuck yes, Kevin Bacon is so good. Whether he's playing a bad guy or he's playing a good guy, he's just always so good. But my number 10 is from 2007 from James Wan. It's called Death Sentence. And Kevin Bacon plays this father whose one of his sons gets murdered by a gang during a gang initiation.
Okay.
And his whole drive for revenge is more on the realistic emotional side of things. So it's not like sleek and badass. It's very emotional. It's very dirty. It's very messy. And it's just, I've always really appreciated how this movie kind of tells the story of revenge and how it progresses and escalates as the film makes its way forward, with the cops even like warning him and kind of, dude, you can't be making these kinds of choices. You're actually making things worse, which would be a normal thing in a revenge movie if an officer is like trying to tell the would-be vigilante or revenge seeker, like, you're just going to make everything worse. We've heard it before, but there's something about the weight of this story and the cadence from the cops and Kevin Bacon's performance that makes you feel the full scope of like every action does have a consequence to it. So I just think Death Sentence is like the unsung hero of James Wan's backlog. It's so fucking good. It is kind of grisly. It's not a clean movie, but it's a very good movie, very awesome, and Kevin Bacon is fantastic in this film. So it's one that I've always loved and just always felt deserves so much better.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. When you talked about it being grisly, I'm of course reminded of James Wan having done Saw. Is it?
It's very low budget, so it's like low lighting for most of it. It's got that grainy kind of look to it for a lot of the shots, and it's just, the dialogue is fantastic. The performances are all incredible, and watching this father be emotionally broken from the death of one of his sons, watching him trying to keep his family together, but losing it at the same time while trying to plot revenge against the gang members and stay out of the law. Like, it's very just the way that you watch him try to juggle everything and not very well is fantastic. It's so good. I wish people would go and watch this. So if you're a James Wan fan, give him that credit. Like, go watch it for him, because this is a great freaking movie.
That sounds awesome. I love the poster. The poster looks like Mad Max, which makes me love it. The game, not the movie. The movie sucked, but sorry, Mark Wahlberg and Mila Kunis.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. My number 10 is a movie that I know you love, and I'm curious to see if it rose to the quality to be on your list or not, because I think there's a chance it could be. I went at number 10 with Mandy.
It is not, but it's an honorable mention. It's so good.
It's so good. So I remember you saw it before me and you're like, you have to see this movie. You're going to love it. And you're absolutely right. The style of Mandy. So Nicolas Cage it takes place in the 80s. He's a lumberjack, and he's like the most in love anyone's ever been with the love of his life, Mandy. And they just live in the woods, and she's an artist, and it's quirky and cute. And it's almost the first hour of the movie. And then the title card comes up in the middle of the movie and says, you're about to watch Mandy. It says Mandy, but seeing a title card in the middle of the movie, you're like, okay, now the movie's starting.
Right.
It happens right after a cult leader kidnaps his wife and murders her, burns her in a bag, and in front of Red's character. And so he forges the most badass battle axe of all time, and then the title card hits, and you're like, I'm about to see some serious shit.
and you do.
And you do. It is surreal and bizarre and fantastic the entire time.
Oh my God. The direction that movie goes. I do remember watching it that first time and being excited to tell you about it because I knew like, dude, the chainsaw. Like,
yeah, there's a chainsaw battle between the two men, which is awesome.
It's just what a trip that movie is. Yeah, Mandy is an honorable mention for me. I've wanted it on the list, but just the way that it all came about, I was like, maybe in a year or two you'll make it, but you're like, it's right there. Mandy's so fucking good.
It really is, and it was like it. I wanted it kind of a little higher, but then I had a very full list, and so it got stuck at number 10 because I had to put on the list.
It is a solid number 10. It really is. Oh my God. Oh, that just made the whole night, Jake. Oh,
oh, we got a long ways to go.
I know, but Mandy's so good. And it's so bizarre, and the images you see, and just the things that happen and show up. You're like, what is going on? But it's amazing.
Yeah, some of it's fueled by an LSD trip. Some of it is just crazy demon biker henchmen, and it's a hippie cult that gets their shit pushed in, and it's great.
Right. See, and it has that underlining theme, people. Cults are bad.
Yeah.
Just stay away from cults.
Damn hippies.
All right. Well, my number 9 is nowhere near as badassery and mindfuck trip that Mandy is.
It's hard bar to reach.
That's yeah. But mine is another one that I feel got like just kind of cast aside. Wasn't very big when it came out, but it is a powerful movie to me. And it's got one of my favorite performances from Jodie Foster in it. So my number 9 is also from 2007. It's called The Brave One, where Jodie Foster plays this radio talk show host who her whole show is based around just walking around New York City just to appreciate the sounds of the city and what it kind of has to offer. Like kind of take a stop and smell the roses kind of mentality, but with the big city in New York. Her and her
very sweet.
Yeah, her and her boyfriend are attacked one night and by a gang. And when she comes to, the boyfriend is dead, and she's been
boyfriend Saeed.
Yep. Her grieving process and her fear kind of take over, and the way that she deals with all of it is she decides that she needs to seek revenge on the people that stole her life from her, essentially. And it's got Terrence Howard in it. He does a great job in this movie as well. The music to it is incredible. The story of her just trying to find strength again to walk through the city, and then as she starts finding this new kind of unhealthy strength in finding revenge and starts taking people out. It's a very cool movie. I think it's one that deserves a lot more credit than it ever got. And it's always been high on my list, and every time I watch it, the ending is always just so like fuck yeah to me, because it has a lot of layers to it. So the way they wrote this film is just awesome, and it had to be on my list. This was one that, like, when I saw, we're doing revenge movies, I was like, well, Brave One. It was literally the first movie I wrote down for this list.
Nice.
It's so good. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it sounds like her kind of being in love with the city and hosting that show and all that stuff, and then having such a terrible thing happen to her could certainly kill that.
Oh yeah, and she does a great job. I mean, it's Jodie Foster. Like, the woman is just incredible when it comes to acting, and she does such an intense performance, showing not only was like the love of her life taken from her, but the love of the city, her love of just appreciating the small things and her safety are gone, and that's her motivation. which I just think is awesome. So
Yeah, that is very awesome. My number 9 is, I feel like, one of the more underappreciated or easily forgotten Martin Scorsese movies, Gangs of New York.
Oh yeah.
It's such a not fun. Fun might be the wrong word for Gangs of New York, but I find it fun and fascinating being set in the mid 1800s and kind of being in a very young New York City, and but still having kind of that gang warfare that New York City was known for so long, starting out very early on like that. And so it also, I think, parallels well with The Departed, which is one of my favorite Scorsese movies, because Leonardo DiCaprio plays a very similar character. He he is seeking revenge on Bill the Butcher, who has killed his father when he was a young boy. He holds on to that vengeance and rage inside of him until he's an adult man, and then tries to get in good with Bill's gang and in order to get close to him and seek revenge on him. But Daniel Day-Lewis does such a great job, because he's like, once Amsterdam, Leonardo DiCaprio's character gets into the gang, he kind of realizes that Bill's can be a nice guy. Like, he's not the worst. It's not the worst thing in the world to be in his gang, and he certainly sees the benefits, and Bill treats him nicely, and he doesn't treat him like this Irish scum like his dad was, basically. And so I think it's really, really kind of a different sort of historical epic, particularly that has to do with gang warfare. And they wear red and blue, and it's like Bloods and Crips, but it's like handlebar mustaches and derby hats, and
it's the mustaches that got
and,
you, aren't it? Isn't it?
It helps a lot. And freaking, so I think it's probably my favorite Daniel Day-Lewis performance, way up there, tied probably with Daniel Plainview from There Will Be Blood. But he has one eye, and his other eye is like this glass eye, but it has like the United States seal or whatever on it. And just the fact that he, as an actor, had a full glass, like not a full glass eye, but a full glass cap that went on his real eye, and then taught himself to tap on that glass on his eye with a knife without blinking. As maybe he's always been a method actor. He's always done impressive things, but that's like the most impressive thing I've ever heard of. Like, how do you even do that? I wouldn't even know where to start teaching myself to do that. So I think it's very cool. I think that Cameron Diaz is actually really good in it, and one of her more different kind of roles. And I really just like the whole story and kind of how the vengeance plays out in the end.
Yeah. No, Gangs is fantastic. That was I've always liked the scope of that movie. For being a Scorsese film, it has like a different look to it, different kind of feel to it, and it's Daniel Day-Lewis. Like,
right.
It's Daniel Day-Lewis playing a fucking lunatic. He's fantastic in that movie.
He really is.
That's awesome. All right, so this is the first one on my list that I have to give spoilers about.
Okay.
So spoiler alert ahead, because this is a trip of a movie. It's a very patient, very dialogue forward film where it just kind of like gets into your skin and just stays there. Jake, I'm really, really hoping you have seen this movie, because if you haven't, you need to remedy that. Because I'm gonna
just leave the stream real quick, and then you can talk, and then I'll come back.
I know you're a huge fan of this actor, and so that's why I feel like you've seen it. I really feel like you have seen this movie.
Okay.
So it's a movie from 2015, and it was kind of an independent release, so it didn't get a whole lot of press, I feel like. But it's got Jason Bateman in it and Joel Edgerton.
Yeah.
And it's called The Gift. Jake, have you seen this?
No, I know the cover of it because it's been on my watch list for absolutely ages.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to say anything, which is a bummer.
Joel Edgerton wrote and directed this movie? Maybe that's why it's on my list.
Yes, he did.
Okay. Can you say anything about it?
It's such a patient movie, and the way it gets under your skin is fucking brilliant. And it has one of the best endings to like a drama thriller kind of film, but that's really all I can say. Jake, I can't believe you haven't seen this movie.
Dude, I have honestly had it on my list for probably years at this point.
It's so well made. It's so well done. And
I
one
love
saw
Rebecca
it.
Hall.
Yes.
I love Jason Bateman.
Like, it's one of those movies where it's not a very long movie. It's like 90 minutes. Oh, okay. It's just under 2 hours, actually. So it feels like it goes by quick, but it has so many layers. And it's one of those things where every scene you're just like, how am I supposed to feel? What am I supposed to be doing right now? And okay, well, that's all I can say. So my number 8 is The Gift.
Wendell Pierce plays a detective, so for all of you Wire fans out there,
True.
The Wire, that's a good one.
Please, people, and Jake, you especially, please watch this movie. Go find it.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix right now and Paramount, and on Roku channel and Prime. So go watch this.
There's really no excuse for not watching it.
Right.
On IMDb, the more you like the more movies like this list is The Invitation, Identity, Coherence, like movies that I love. I'm like, I should freaking watch this movie.
The Gift is so good. It's such a trip of a movie.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
and Jason
I will
Bateman
watch it.
is fantastic. So
I will watch it, and then I'll do an update. We'll do an update on it.
Sweet. I'm so
ASAP. I watch it. And I'm not going to watch the trailer. Get out of here, trailer.
Yeah, don't watch the trailer. People, just find The Gift and go watch it because it's so good.
All right. Well, then, my number 8. This was a tricky one because I knew I would have to have a Quentin Tarantino movie on my list. He has several
but you already put Kill
films.
Bill on your...
Yes, I did. Yes, I did, Dustin. Thank you for pointing that out. I did put Kill Bill on whatever list that was that we did recently.
Like the one we just did.
And I think I did the whole bloody affair, so I can't even do a switcheroo and say the first part or the second part or whatever. I did the whole thing. So for that reason, and also because I feel like it's too obvious. So even if it was eligible, I might still not do it because I do like this movie personally a little bit more, just as far as overall enjoyment and the characters and the performances, and just it's also Quentin Tarantino's kind of first meta revenge movie. So he's been doing since Inglourious Bastards and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He did kind of letting the audience seek revenge on some tragic human history thing that has happened that we've all kind of lived with as fact, changing that into a new story and letting the audience live out kind of that revenge fantasy, which I think is really fun. And this, I think, was his first one of doing that. So Django Unchained is what I went with at this spot.
Such a badass movie.
It's so badass, and I feel like
such a badass movie.
It lets everybody that has, everybody knows slavery is bad. It doesn't matter who's doing it. It doesn't matter what color they are. Slavery is bad, okay? But it lets everybody that also feels that and also looks back on history and feels like so many atrocities happened to so many people and it was just dreadful. It lets you kind of put all of that into one focus point and then have that bad guy to put all of your anger and rage and frustration on. And for Leonardo DiCaprio and Monsieur Candy to be that guy, he's so charming and shitty at the same time. He's just flawless in that role. And then you immediately get behind Jamie Foxx as Django in this movie because he is perfect. Him and Christoph Waltz are perfect together as these two unlikely compadres that go on a mission to rescue Django's wife from Candyland, the plantation down there. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of violence. It's a very bloody finale as that house sees a lot of people get killed in it. But it's satisfying and it is very, very fun the whole time. And it's done with like a wink and a smile and look how fun this is kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy. Oh, side note, Christy's been watching Alias lately and just like binging the hell about it. She loves that movie. She told me that's the best show ever made, which I doubt. But I did watch one episode. I watched 2 episodes with her because Quentin Tarantino is on it. He plays a villain on the show.
Is he Australian?
No, he's not. And he doesn't get blown up by dynamite either. But he is pretty great. And I was like, I haven't seen Tarantino act in a movie like I know he did earlier on, but this was kind of like middle of his filmmaking career. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, seeing him in Django as a little cameo is really, really fun as well. all you Quentin Tarantino fans, if you're a completionist, you need to see Alias.
Apparently, but only those couple episodes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Django is such a blast. I've always loved that movie. And it is a brutal, tough film to watch when some of the violence happens. Mm-hmm. But you're right. When Django shows up to just let loose, it's you're cheering. You're cheering for it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good build up and teases where he like wants to let loose, wants mm-hmm. to drop the guys that he's been putting on to get in there. And so once he finally does, it's very satisfying.
Yeah. All right. Well, my number 7, because like pretty much every list I have, I can't make a top 10 list without having something from the 90s in it, because the 90s is still the greatest decade. So, yeah. And this one should be no shock. This was a pretty big deal for, I guess, technically the generation, like you didn't have older siblings, but for like my brother's generation, his age group, but then our generation, it became a huge thing. This was another one of those movies for us in like middle school, high school, where everyone was like, you have to see this movie. And yes, the real life tragedy that made the movie kind of famous definitely helps blow this film up, but it's just a badass film. My number 7 is The Crow.
Okay. Yeah. I have never seen The Crow.
You've never watched it? It's never did. Like hyper stylized and comic booky and hyper gothic. It's a cool fucking movie. For me, I've always thought this is just like, what a badass movie. It's supernatural to it. It's just cool. Mm-hmm. The villain is so over the top and obnoxious, but that's what makes him perfect, and all of his little henchmen are irritating perfect. Like everyone is just, they hit their marks exactly where they need to. But The Crow is just, it's so iconic, and it's so, it just kind of does pump you up when you watch it, and you watch the character of the Crow kind of seek his revenge and get for the atrocities that they all did to his girlfriend and him. It's just, this movie left a mark on me when I saw it when I was young, and it's one that I just always get excited to rewatch. I wasn't sure if I was going to have it this high, but when I rewatched it, I was like, nope, I fucking love this movie. And I will say, as a side note, I probably won't have anything to do with the remake that they are releasing in August. I
was going to ask you about that.
When I saw the trailer, like, I haven't been on board with them remaking it really ever, because I think the fact that it was Brandon Lee's final performance, and that's such a big deal around this film, and it's so dear to so many people. Like, this is an important film to so many people. I think it's kind of a slap in the face to all of that. And the trailer really looks shitty. I just think it looks like a terrible fucking movie. The remake. And yeah, so fuck the remake. Just watch the 1994 version. But it's fantastic. If you like hyper stylized, hyper gothic, it's right up your alley. And it's a great revenge movie.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds very, very cool. The only Crow trivia I know is that Chad Stahelski, the director of John Wick, all the John Wick movies, who was also stuntman for Keanu in The Matrix and a bunch of movies, his first like major performance was doubling Brandon Lee after he died so that they could finish the movie.
And it's really cool how clean the editing is on The Crow, so that it always feels and looks like Brandon Lee is the one that's on screen.
Yeah.
So, very
that's
cool
awesome.
movie. And it's one of those where when you watch it and you think to yourself, man, if like my loved ones were murdered in front of me and then I was murdered and then I came back from the dead to get revenge on them, I would totally act exactly like this guy does. I would totally show off when they shoot me and my wounds miraculously heal. I would laugh in their faces and show it to them. Yeah, I would be that guy.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go for sure. I would do that too.
It's such a badass movie. It's so cool.
I feel like it's a movie that I should have seen because it definitely is such an iconic one from our generation.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get around to that. I'm sure it holds up as like even just a new viewer nowadays.
I mean, I think it holds up, but I think every movie holds up. So
I like that style, like from that time period. I'm always nostalgic for it, so it will be fun, I think. My number 7 is also from the 90s, although the very, very, very late 90s, 1999.
All right.
This is the only movie on my list where revenge does not come in the form of violence towards anybody, really.
Okay.
And so I felt like it was a little unique in that regard. My number 7 is Office Space. Because, so written and directed by Mike Judge, and I think he does a perfect...
The revenge aspect is straight just like 9-to-5 jobs. Like, that's your revenge right there. Shitty bosses.
The most relatable story ever that Mike Judge put together, that everybody who's ever been in an office job just gets shit on, gets bad, terrible tasks, forced to come in on the weekend, just constantly underappreciated or unappreciated, bullied by the man. And I feel like the company they work for, Initech, is just a company that constantly abuses its employees, and it takes Peter getting hypnotized to kind of break out of that control that they have over everybody, that he's like, you know what? I don't need any of this. Fuck you. And that weirdly makes them like him more. And so he gets promoted and stuff. But then once his friends are about to get laid off, he's like, you know what? Let's stick it to them. And we'll upload this virus to steal a little bit of money. And then there's a little problem that makes it a lot of money. And
decimal points are important.
Decimal really points, yes, for sure. You would think computer programmers would know that. But the best part is that they're not even really the heroes of the movie, even though they have been wronged and they do deserve retribution. Milton
is the hero. Milton is your revenge aspect, your actual revenge-driven.
He's had everything taken from him. His cubicle, he gets put in the basement. Everybody forgets about him. Last piece of cake, he never gets it. He stops getting paid, and then they take his swing line red stapler, and that's just the straw that broke the camel's back.
That's the last straw.
And so he decides to burn this mother down, and he does, and it's just absolutely glorious. So I think, anybody that's ever, whether you've been in an office, like a tech office like that, or you like, and Jennifer Aniston's character working in some shitty restaurant.
Any 9-to-5, just where you have an unrelentless douchey boss, you relate to Office Space.
You just wish you had that opportunity pop up that you could get your vengeance on them. And so watching it is very satisfying and very, very funny.
it's Office Space really is one of those movies where every time you watch it, you're always just like, yes. It's super quotable. You relate to it. Yeah, I remember relating to it even as a kid with my first job that I didn't hate, but you just like instantly, the moment you go into the workforce, you instantly understand like, oh, there's a different like level of shittiness that can start happening here. And then it does.
Yeah. It's just like you have to sign away some of your autonomy to not do whatever you want. And I do think that you feel that loss. And so you're like, fuck this, man. This sucks.
Yeah, I'm going to need you to come in on Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, what's going on with your TPS reports? Yeah, I heard that you messed one up.
PC load letter. What the fuck does that mean? God, I love this movie.
That movie is even relatable just on the commute to work. And I think everyone has had the moment where you're rocking out in your car and you get stopped and you turn it all the way down and you go quiet and you kind of side-eye the people around you. And the moment they drive away, you crank that shit back up and you go all gangster again. It's true. Yeah. You really do.
You're like, there are some bad words and some N-words and things I shouldn't be yet rapping out loud in public. But when I'm in private, I do it like crazy.
Oh, that's such a fantastic pick, Jake. Oh my God.
Yeah, I thought you liked that.
I do. Well, I can't really segue with my number 6 because it's not funny. It's it actually starts off very brutal and very unsettling, and you definitely root for the hero who is also straight up villain because he's kind of a straight up murderer and torturer. But you get it. Like, you get it. I side with you.
Yeah.
I know this was like a huge movie when it came out. Everyone loved it, but I feel like it's kind of fallen off the radar over the last decade, which is a shame because this performance and this actor are both incredible. And I wish he would kind of make like a resurgence because Gerard Butler is a badass. I mean, he just is. But my number 6 is Law Abiding Citizen with Jamie Foxx.
Yeah.
This is a intense movie because it's one of those that kind of challenges you on like, would you completely abandon every fiber of morality to seek revenge on those that wronged your family or wrong justice for your family's rape and murder? So it's a challenging film, but I think that's why I have it so high on my list, is because it does challenge. And you do root for Gerard Butler's character as he's behind bars for torturing and mutilating and straight up murdering a couple people. But you also you kind of understand. They do this weird thing where they make you understand pretty early on why lawyers make deals.
Yeah.
And you understand it, but then they throw in the emotional level of like, if you were on this guy's side, Gerard Butler's side, how would you respond? You would think it's the worst thing in the world, and you're not going to see full rationality or whatever. So I think this movie does a great job of showing that kind of all those sides, and then also showing the corrupted side of like, well, he just doesn't want to mess up his winning streak as this hot shit lawyer trying to become a DA. And I think it's just a great film showing all around kind of the villainy that everyone is capable of, and the extreme violence that we're also capable of. So I absolutely love this film. I think it's such a dark film, but that's where its strength is. So, and Gerard Butler's a beast in this movie, so he's just not someone you want to fuck with. And I'm not saying because he's not even jacked in this movie. He's just
determined.
His determination and the choices that, or the areas of violence that he allows himself to go is so extreme and gross that you're like, yep.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I remember. It's been a minute since I saw it, but I remember how hopeless this being like a victim of the system felt. That he wants the justice system to do kind of the right thing, and it doesn't really work out just due to all the different nuances of modern justice systems. And at a certain point, it feels like it's too big of a thing that there's no way that you're so small and the system is so big and there's nothing that you can really do about it until it starts doing stuff about it. So I think you've definitely root for him, even in all the chaos.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say my number 6 pick because how you led into that was exactly the same description as mine. So if you like that movie, watch this movie. Right. It's brutal. The hero does lose all sense of kind of his humanity and goes down a very dark path and starts killing people and torturing people, and that's exactly what this movie is. And it's also a Korean film, so I considered it for our top 10 foreign films, but I already had a Korean movie, and I wanted to have one per country, and I knew we were doing Revenge in like a month or so later, so I held it off because it'd be perfect for this. So my number 6 is I Saw the Devil.
Okay,
and it's intense, man. It's very, very intense and very, very brutal, but also worth it for sure. So it's about this. You've never seen it.
I haven't watched I Saw the Devil. No.
It's okay. It sounded like you didn't. So it's about this special agent guy who has a fiance, and she just gets a flat tire one night, and ends up getting murdered by just some random guy who goes around and just constantly is killing people or abusing people or whatever. He's just kind of unhinged. And so the main character kind of snaps and decides to go on a vendetta and starts working down the list of all of the known suspects, and finds a couple of pieces of shit that he kind of interrogates to determine if they did it. And when they didn't do it, he still kind of fucks them up and turns them in and kind of gives them a little vigilante justice. But then once he finds the guy, that's where he kind of wants him to have the worst experience possible. And so he finds him.
Well, don't spoil it for me.
The point of the movie is that he doesn't kill him in that moment. He decides to follow him, and even this guy, he like confronts him and then is like, I'm gonna be on your ass all the time, and he's like just starts following him and torturing him, and then that guy's like doing other shitty things, and he'll like swoop in and fuck him up and and then swoop out again. And so it's like the kind of movie that's so intense that it could border on torture porn if it was not done the way it's done. The way it's done is done so well. It's shot really beautifully. There's a lot of really human, sad elements. Mm-hmm. And the special agents, his relationship with the girl, his fiance's dad, his would-be father-in-law, who used to be chief of police, is really, really great and touching and all of that stuff. So it's a huge recommend. It's very highly rated on IMDb, and I think that's accurate. It's really, really, really good.
Yeah, I was just checking it out where I could watch it, because you've brought that up a couple times now, and every time you do bring it up, I'm always like, how have I not watched this one yet? It's right up in the kind of stuff that I should watch. So
yeah, it's scary and gross, but also awesome at the same time. It's just kind of like, what if there are people doing things that you would never think possible. Mm-hmm. And if you are already on a mission to like extract revenge on somebody and then learn who they interacted with, learn all these other things that they're doing, I think you would do what this guy does. He's pretty much a hero overall.
All right. Yeah, I need to remedy that. That's for sure. All right. Well, my number 5 is the most recent movie, and it is high on my list because this was one I was super hyped about, and then having watched it, it just clicked with me, and it's just something that it just really like embedded into me. This awesome, it's not just revenge, but it's like duty and bringing honor to your family, and the mythology of the whole story and the folklore of the whole story is just, I love every aspect of this film. I absolutely love. I know it probably turned a lot of people off because it is hyper ritualistic and hyper like lore, but I love that aspect of this film. I'm so glad that it is as deep in all that as it is. But my number 5 is The Northman from 2022.
Yeah.
This
Robert
movie
Eggers.
it was one I remember being excited about it just because I'm a fan of like everyone associated with the film and Robert Eggers, and watching it though, I just knew pretty quick while watching this movie, like, ooh, this is one that's going to be with me for a long time. And it really is. It's just, I think the whole idea of this kid who is supposed to inherit the crown from his father, and then he watches his father get brutally murdered and betrayed, and then he gets hunted down and has to find survival, and he kind of loses sight, and he loses his duty to get revenge and to avenge the family and the crown and the lineage, and that like kind of actually destroys him. He becomes a bloodlusting like Viking, and he just, that's all he does. And then when he's reminded of what he's supposed to do, it's like not even a question, it's just a yep, I fucked up, time to get on track. And that's exactly what he does, without question, without thought. And I just think that's such a powerful statement, not necessarily to go and get revenge on stuff, but to just kind of like
remember who you are,
remember your duty, remember to bring honor and all that kind of stuff. Like it's a very powerful film to me. I think all the performances are absolutely incredible, and I really do love that folklore and that mythology, and I love how deep the movie dives into all of it. Norse mythology is pretty intense stuff, and it is beautifully shown and kind of hinted at and shown, or like fleshed out during the course of The Northman. But I think this is such a cool, powerful film. It's brutal, and it's just, I love the final fight, the whole, we'll fight on hell or in hell, but it's not like the hell that everyone thinks. It's like Norse hell, the Valkyries, the Valhalla, everything about it is just so beautiful. I absolutely love this movie.
Yeah, it's really, really cool and really, really beautiful.
And for you, Jake, it's got a ton of just hyper jacked
dudes. Yeah, jack dudes with axes are even better. Yeah, completely agree. And beards, I guess beards are cool too.
Crazy beards, yeah.
Okay. Well, my number 5 is aligned pretty closely as again. So it's also a historical epic. Also has to do with a hero who is promised to be the heir to a ruler, and then having that taken from him.
So we're not like crossing over on actual films, but the themes we are right there on. All right, I got you.
Yeah, way more specific themes than just revenge. And so I have this movie only number 5. I love the movie as a whole a lot, probably a lot more than some of my higher movies, but the revenge element is not as deep or complete or done as viciously as I generally would prefer. So some of my later picks are much more revenge heavy. But this movie is an all-time classic, and I think beloved by pretty much everybody. My number 5 is Gladiator.
Yep. So we do have an official crossover, but not yet.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, that was kind of fun.
Yeah,
I didn't even mean to word it like that.
That's funny. Yeah, just when you talk about revenge, and I immediately picture the speech in the arena about how he's Maximus Decimus Meritus,
Yep.
and father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and he'll have his vengeance. And every time I like even think of the beginning of that, I get goosebumps because it's so powerful. And the course of the movie is so great, and how Maximus is like, he's promised to be the heir, that Marcus Aurelius will choose him as his heir to be emperor of Rome over his own son in private, but promised by the only man who's even capable of making a promise like that.
Yep.
And then so that's very, exciting. And then to have that kind of taken away from him, and then also have your wife and child taken from you, and then you have nothing left. So why would you bother fighting back, really, and then get put into slavery and have to fight in the arena until kind of like the Northmen decide, I'm going to use where I'm at, use what I have, the skills I have, a very specific set of skills to then rise up the ranks in the gladiator arena, not get killed, and form alliances and things he needs to actually meet the man that stole all of that from him and extract his revenge. And it's just, with no other real goal, it's a very pure, I have nothing else to live for. I don't care if I make it out after the fact, but I still need to do this thing before I die. And so every time I see, like, walk through a field of wheat or tall grass, I'm always doing the hand in the grass thing that he does. Yeah. And it's just, the Gladiator is an all-time classic. I'm sure we'll get into it a lot more, because I think we want to do an episode on it for the sequel coming out. Yeah. This is one that, unlike The Crow, I have maybe some more hope for Gladiator 2, mostly because Denzel Washington is in it. But the rest of the cast, I'm not entirely sure about. But Denzel Washington, he's a heavy hitter for sure.
Yeah. I won't say too much because, like I said, it's on my list as well. But I'm still on the side, even after they released like a few of the official stills from Gladiator 2. I'm still in my camp of why don't need this, don't want it. So we'll see if I get persuaded.
Yep, it's possible.
But until then, I'm going to tell you about my number 4.
Okay.
My number 4 is probably one of... I was kind of shocked I wasn't going to have this one higher, but I can't deny the top 3, so... But number 4 has always been with me, and it's one that I always debate. And we have talked about it a couple times, and I watched both cuts a couple times, and I still can't figure out which one I definitively enjoy more. So my number 4, although having a ultimate director's cut and then the theatrical cut, which is very different.
Yeah.
I love both. They both have a lot to offer. If I had to pick one to tell audiences, you might as well just watch this one, I would probably go with the director's cut because that was the original vision. But the theatrical cut has some really good jokes in it. But my number 4 is not revenge over tragedy. Mine is revenge over a bad guy just wanting his $70,000 worth of a cut in a robbery gone wrong. My number 4 is Payback with Mel Gibson from 1999. This movie is fucking hilarious. It's badass. It's so sarcastic, and it's such a like tongue-in-cheek kind of film where there are no good guys throughout the entire course of the story. Everyone is straight villain, dumb, and just like you really, I mean, the tagline for the movie is you're going to root for the bad guy this time. And it's true. You really do. And the whole joke of like everyone keeps thinking that he wants the full $140,000 and he corrects everyone like, no, it's 70, and everyone thinks he's ridiculous for only wanting $70,000, but that was his cut. So he's like sticking to the principle of it. It's just Payback is such a joy of a film to watch because it doesn't take itself horribly serious. It just lets the violence be what it needs to be. It's a little over the top. It's ridiculous. It's not brutal. It's just abrupt. You get Lucy Liu in one of the most random roles I've ever seen her in. It's just, I fucking love this movie. I think what a great idea to just make a movie where everyone is a villain. No one has redeeming qualities to them, but you still get the audience to root for them and like these guys. It's just, what a trip of a film. I love Payback so much. Always have. It's another one that's just always stuck with me. I saw it when I was a little kid, and it was just, I probably shouldn't have seen it when I was a kid, but oh well.
Rated R for sure. It's one that, we talked about it on the director's cut episode, and I know that I think you had said that the director's cut is like a completely different movie from
it is,
the theatrical cut. And I was trying to get it watched because I haven't seen the straight up, I think they call it straight up director's cut. I haven't seen that yet to really make a decision for myself either yet. But the theatrical is really, really good.
Yeah, and the theatrical, like, it's just as entertaining. It just has the only thing I will say, the theatrical cut does try to give you redeeming values or redeeming aspects of the main characters, Mel Gibson's character, whereas the straight up cut just throws all that to the wind. Like, no, it's a straight villain story. So
yeah,
they're both very entertaining. They just are.
Okay. I love it. My number 4 is the earliest movie on my list. It's from 1992, and it's a Western. I knew that there were a lot of great revenge stories in Westerns, and this is probably the most famous one, perhaps. Unforgiven. It's just such a good movie, and watching it this time, I really focused on how it's really just the same John Wick archetype character that William Money, played by Clint Eastwood, is a notorious and very effective, very famous killer who has an uncanny knack for it, is just good at it, but meets a woman, falls in love, they get married, and she kind of cleans him up, sobers him up, and he decides to leave that world behind, and he becomes a pig farmer, and he's very, very happy. But then she dies, and he, even though he still has kids, decides, in order to help take care of the kids, that he will take this bounty that gets offered to him to go and help this poor prostitute who gets cut up by some dick, cut up in a face and stuff, and so all the prostitutes pool their money to get revenge because the sheriff will not help them. They really have no restitution for what has happened to her, and her whole life is now, she thinks her whole life is ruined because she can't be a prostitute anymore. And the sheriff is great. Gene Hackman plays the sheriff, and he's Little Bill Daggett, who's just kind of doing his own thing. He's building a house, and he's caught up in his own like fame and stories and things, and not really interested in like actually serving justice on anybody. And actively does a lot of shitty things. So it's kind of a bonus revenge story, because they go on the journey to revenge this prostitute, and then along the way, William Money, Clint Eastwood, he teams up with his old partner, Morgan Freeman, Ned Logan, who ends up getting killed, and so they now need to go and avenge him as well. And when Clint Eastwood as William Money, he like does that turn. He's like decides, I'm back.
Yeah.
It's the most satisfying thing because he's so like passive the whole movie, and then just decides, you know what, let's start drinking some whiskey and let's actually get in there and fuck some dudes up.
And he does.
And he does.
He really does.
And it's great. It's so good.
Yeah. Unforgiven is I remember seeing it like when I was young, but not really remembering it well. But then you always hear about Unforgiven. It's like regarded as one of the greatest Westerns, period. And if not, it might even be regarded as like the ultimate Western.
Could be. Yeah.
But I remember when I rewatched it, it was after hearing all of the like hype over it. And I'll be honest, when I rewatched it, I felt kind of like, this movie can't be that good. And then it was so much better than all the hype had like built it up to be, and just being, this might be Clint Eastwood's greatest movie of like, holy shit, this is good.
Yeah. It's very patient, takes its time, but it gets there, and it gets there really well. Good.
Yeah, all the characters are so well written, fleshed out, and I'm always like, man, Eastwood as a director is just one of those guys, especially in the like 90s and then 2000s. He was just a director where you were like, oh, his name's on it, the movie's going to be incredible. And you're like, I'll probably walk out of this movie just feeling kind of like shitty about something. Like, it's going to hit me on a deep level, but it'll be good.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a fantastic pick. All right. Well, my number 3 is our crossover. My number 3 is Gladiator.
Okay, pretty close.
You were right, man. Like, when you hear a revenge story, I hear his speech. I see the scene of them facing off together with little shit stain Joaquin Phoenix, kind of having that like, oh shit moment. And he does it so well.
Yeah, his whole performance as Commodus is so incredible.
He's intense. He's so evil and manipulative and corrupt, and Joaquin Phoenix plays that role perfectly. I know Crow gets all the credit for that film, and he deserves a lot of credit, but everyone brings so much to the table in that movie. I kind of feel like Crow overshadows them just because he's Russell Crowe, but Gladiator is just so, god damn, that movie's so good. It's got like one of the perfect soundtracks of all time. It's just, everything about it is so great. It's kind of weird knowing that Russell Crowe hated the script because he thought it was like the dumbest thing he had read. So him and
I would have heard that.
Yeah, him and Ridley Scott had to like doctor it up quite a bit. It's such a good movie, and it's one of those where, man, you feel for him so much on his quest after he's like enslaved to be a gladiator, and then him understand as the audience start understanding what he's doing while he's enslaved, of like biding his time, working the way up the ranks, knowing what his goal actually is going to be, and watching it all come to fruition. Spoiler, for a 24-year-old movie. It's just so satisfying. I still think it has one of the most powerful endings ever. There's just something with the music, the lack of music, the sounds of the swords, the dialogue, all of it is just so uplifting and inspiring, and you feel like you can go and change the world after you watch this movie. So Gladiator is just, it's a unique film. It really is. I think that's why I don't have a lot of hope for the sequel, is because you're not...
How do you capture that?
Yeah, you're not going to capture it again. You're not going to recreate this. It will not be nearly as powerful and fulfilling as that original one. So, Oh, Gladiator's so good. It's so fucking good.
It really is. It's absolutely incredible. My number 3 is... I just remember loving this movie as soon as it came out, and I loved it so much, but nobody really talks about it. Like, maybe people love it, but it's just not a popular or commonly praised movie.
Okay.
I also love it because it is kind of a unique take on the revenge story, a unique process and a unique resolution. I think compared to most of my movies have a very violent story and a very violent end. This one is kind of a little different than that. So my number 3 is The Count of Monte Cristo from 2002. The Henry Cavill. Well, it is Henry Cavill, but
and
Jim Caviezel.
Guy Pearce.
Yeah. And Henry Cavill's in it. He plays his son. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. So it's you could make someone like pay who tried to ruin your life. And I think that that's the first inclination, is that if someone took your whole life away and tricked you, used your friendship, used your naivety to then get you imprisoned and steal your whole life, steal your girlfriend and all that stuff, I think that would have a very serious effect on you, and you would definitely want to murder that person and steal everything that they have and really rub it in their face. And that is really the kind of the build up of Count of Monte Cristo. But once he is imprisoned and once he learns a bunch of different things from this priest that was in there with him, and then he is able to escape and follow a treasure map and find a bunch of money, he has everything he needs to actually accomplish that. And he does start putting the chess pieces in place and making everything fall where he wants them. But the culmination of the story is that, they say that the best revenge is living well, and I think this movie illustrates that this Guy Pearce, who's sniveling and jealous and a jerk, not really your friend, he is unhappy and he doesn't have anything in his life worth living for, so that's why he wants everything you have. And so the best thing that Edmond Dantes can do is actually just appreciate what he has, let it go, and move on. And he ends up doing that, basically.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of a unique take on the revenge tale. And he kind of learns what's important, learns that he has everything he could ever want. He has this woman that loves him. He learns he has a son. And it's really at that moment when he learns that he has a son and he's a father that he kind of decides to let go of his hatred and his vengeance. And I think that's really, I think it's relatable for me in the sense that once you have a kid, I definitely noticed your view of the world, your vision of what matters in your life definitely changes. And so I think it's perfectly reasonable for him to say, none of that matters anymore. Right. I can not forgive you, but I can let go of this thing I've been holding on to with a, white fist. So it's one of those great movies and great stories. I enjoyed the book as a kid, and this adaptation of this movie has always been my favorite.
Nice. Yeah, it's been a minute since I've watched it, but I've been having kind of the itch to rewatch it for a little while now. So now I feel like I really need to just buckle down and rewatch it. I remember really liking it. And I remember it being kind of really popular too when it came out. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, it was kind of, I think, when Jim Caviezel started kind of rising to stardom before he became Jesus, and everybody's like, maybe we shouldn't have him be a star because Mel Gibson likes him and we don't like Mel Gibson anymore. But he was really, really famous, and his relationship with Luis Guzman's character is really sweet. Great.
I was watching the trailer while you were talking. I forgot Luis Guzman was even in it. So when he popped, I was like, what the? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he plays his friend or footman.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah, I should rewatch that. All right. Well, my number 2, you didn't you straight up made a slight against it being so obvious that you wouldn't put it on your list, but
I wouldn't be bothered to put it on my list.
I can't not have Kill Bill on this list.
Yeah.
It's such like it really is the most obvious and perfect revenge story. I mean,
to a T.
Very first thing you see on camera from it is revenge is a dish best served cold. Like it's so perfect.
Yeah.
Everything that the bride goes through, the way the story is told, the way her revenge is shown, you are constantly cheering for her, and you kind of find yourself rooting for it to be hyper brutal and hyper violent. Like you want the violence to be big.
Yeah.
And, which is kind of funny because like the atrocity against her and all that, like I don't want to short sell it or whatever, but it's pretty basic. It's they just pissed off the wrong woman. So
Right.
But I can't remember if I told you this previously, but I introduced my daughter to Kill Bill. So the very first,
that's fun.
Her introduction to Quentin Tarantino films was Kill Bill. And so I sat her down and was like, just trust me. This movie's a trip. She was like, all right, whatever, Dad. When it ended, she was just like, this movie's so cool. It's like, I know, it's so cool. It really is the perfect revenge story. For years, like I've always been a big fan of it, but there was a period of time where I was like putting it kind of lower on my Quentin Tarantino list. But rewatching it over the last couple of years and then introducing my daughter to it and introducing her to Tarantino films, like this movie's just, it's so good. It's so fucking good. And the anime like part in volume 1, like I'm not an anime fan, but I love that anime sequence. It's
same.
It's unique. It like doesn't look exactly like anime that I guess I'm used to seeing around. It has kind of like, I like whatever that style is. I don't know what the technical style is.
It's like westernized or something. But
I like that. It's just, I love all the characters. I love the chapters. It's just, it's so good. it's so good.
Yeah, when we way back, like in the very beginning, one of our first like focuses on an artist episodes was Quentin Tarantino. And I just remember watching all of his movies in order to prepare for that episode is one of the most fun preparations we've ever done. It just sticks out in my mind as like, that was such a fun week watching all of his movies back to back.
It's even more fun when you know that he has admitted all of his movies take place in like a Tarantino universe. So they're all taking place in that same world. So when you binge watch it and you watch them all, it's very like, this is cool that at this point, like the history to the Kill Bill world is Inglourious Bastards, and it is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That's just fantastic.
Yeah, that's very cool. That was probably the one movie I was like, he better have this on his list, because if he doesn't, I'll be upset. My number 2 is one of probably one of the first movies I wrote down, because it's not well known, but it is super fantastic. And it's also, I think it's the most realistic of what, if someone sets out to seek revenge, kind of the pitfalls or the problems that can come from that. Things can get very complicated very fast, and if once you take revenge on that, then where does that end? They're going to come back and they're going to take revenge on you, and then you end up in this spiral. And this movie, you definitely see that happen. So my number 2 is Blue Ruin.
I haven't seen.
Oh man, so you've seen Green Room?
Yes, Green Room is so fucking good.
Green Room was written and directed by the same guy, Jeremy Saulnier.
That's why it sounds familiar.
He did Blue Ruin, which is about this guy who the way the story unfolds, I won't tell you too much about the story because it is super, super fascinating. But there is that element where he decides to seek revenge for something that happened to his parents. And there's another couple of guys that are brothers that are involved and responsible, he believes. And so, but it ends up kind of getting out of hand and spiraling in the sense that now they are pissed at him and he has a sister. And so you very much see how things like the Hatfields and McCoys in American history, or the Capulets and Montagues, or just this rivalry, that feud that can last generations, could happen very, very easily. That you feel like you're justifiably taking restitution for something that happened to you, but they feel like it went too far or whatever, or didn't count or whatever, and then it just becomes a vicious cycle. So it's really, really, I feel like, just real and honest, and you won't recognize anybody who's an actor in it. And I think that lends to the story and the characters so much more. I really like when that happens. And he's just a normal guy, but the way that he kind of plans for this vengeance to happen, and then the way he reacts to it happening, and then what he does after and stuff, it's just so cool and so interesting. So it's not as like intense as Green Room. So if you're like, I don't know if I can handle something that crazy, it's not that crazy, but it is that I guess real, if that's the way to put it.
Yeah, that's why it sounded so familiar when you said it, and the moment you were like Green Room, that's how I know that title.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that one's on my list too.
Colors.
I was looking it up, like, all right, where are you playing so that I can watch you? So
yeah, well worth it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I do love Green Room. That movie is something else. Oh, I miss Anton Yelchin.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
All right. Well, my number one is another one that I can't really say a lot because I doubt you've seen it.
Okay.
It wasn't very big when it came out, but the people that have seen it, at least I remember interacting with these people when I used to work at Hollywood Video, which was a short time in my early 20s. Another movie rental place for you kids back when it was important to do that. This was a movie that I recommended to like every person that walked in the door, and kid you not, every time they bring it back, I would ask like, what you think? Everyone always came back just, that movie rocks. Like, I know it's so good. So much fun. I won't go into too much except that it has a killer cast in it, and it's awesome. So just go watch this movie because I can't really go into all of the details about it. But the movie, it stars Bruce Willis, Morgan Freeman, Ben Kingsley, and Josh Hartnett. It's a little film called Lucky Number 11.
I've seen this movie.
Yes.
I love Lucky Number 11.
Oh my God, Lucky Number 11.
It was like up there in the time period with like Smoking Aces and all of that stuff when we were like later in high school, early 20s, whatever. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, it came out in 2006, and this movie just, folks, I know most people haven't even heard of it, but find this movie because it's a joy of a film to watch.
It's like so stylized and fun, and
the way that
Lucy Liu's in this too.
Yeah, Lucy Liu's in it. It's just the way the story is told. All the characters are highly entertaining. You've got the two feuding gangs, the gang bosses that are afraid of each other, so they never leave their penthouses, which are across the street from one another. It's just, this movie is a trip. It's one of the most fun, entertaining. I had to laugh that I started my top 10 list with like a very dark, gritty, brutally violent film, and I have to end it with one that's like just fun and hyper entertaining, and you have to watch it to really get it. It's just, I'm so glad you've seen it, Jake. That makes me so happy.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't let you down twice. Only the one time I didn't see it, but yeah, Looking for Someone is so fun. It's been a minute since I've seen it, but I remember kind of the two different towers of the mob bosses, and it's so fun and cool.
The way the story's told is fantastic, and the whole culmination of everything is like, it's one of those where you think to yourself, you can't help but think to yourself, just like, I hope I can like someday maybe write something that is like this without being like this. Just you can hit those notes with it. It's just, Lucky Number 11 has always been a favorite of mine, and I will forever recommend it to everyone. Yeah, it really is. Just it's that kind of movie. It's so good.
That's awesome. I love how fun of a pick that is. That's great. My number one is also, I think, pretty fun, but has a lot of, I think, good themes that I think nobody who's listened to the show and kind of knows what I'm into will be surprised by. It is a comic book movie from the Wachowskis called V for Vendetta. It has Vendetta right in the title, so you know it's about vengeance. And I think, interestingly enough, as I was like rewatching it, I knew Count of Monte Cristo was going to be on my list. I knew this was going to be on my list also, but I forgot that this movie also references Count of Monte Cristo, like the old 1934 black and white version, in a really kind of good way. And so there's kind of a fun tie in there. But it's I think the best revenge result you could ever hope for is portrayed in this movie, in that not only do you get the personal the personal finalization of all of the shit that you went through and were forced to go through by the system and by all of these different people who were lower level at the time, but now are at really high governmental or police or whatever positions. And not only do you extract revenge on them individually and personally, but also you get to expose all of that to the rest of the world, or the rest of the country at least, and have them on your side as they all are wearing your face, the Guy Fawkes mask, and choosing to basically overthrow that system that allowed all of those terrible things to happen. And I think that's very, very encouraging. The character of V and his particular brand of justice and extravagance and everything is so unique and great. He definitely does go through to lengths and do things to poor Evie that maybe aren't hero worthy, but are necessary, I think, for her to see what he's been through and where he's come from, and relate to him on a level that she needs to in order to help him achieve his vendetta. Yeah. So such a cool movie, such a cool style. It's really, really fun, but also I think really, really meaningful at the same time.
I always laugh every time I watch it. I absolutely adore that film. It was another one I had no desire to watch, because I had heard all the it's a anti-Republican film. The Wachowskis had even come out and said oh yeah, this is anti-right wing. Now, I hate both sides of the fence, folks. If you've listened to our show, you know this. But every time I watch it, I always laugh, because I'm like, are they sure that they made an anti-right wing film? Because the themes in this film are not just that side of the fence. In fact, a lot of that is the other side of the fence. Sorry, folks.
It's very, most of it is very general to all tyranny of all flavors. Which is
smart, because yes, all systems are that corrupt and continue to get more corrupt. So this should be no shock that it was on your list, Jake, for anyone.
I knew that was the case for
sure. But it's such a perfect pick. Yes, it's one of those movies where, again, you always feel just amped up. and ready to like kind of make a mark, take a stand on something. And I think it's a very important film for that aspect. I'm so happy you have that on your list.
Thank you. I knew that you would like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So there you go.
All
That's
right.
the revenge of the list.
Bunch of vigilantism and just brutal. We have hyper violent lists, even with like the fun picks that we've got. There's some hyper violence on our list.
It is the most pure form of vengeance, is to just end someone's existence.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely pretty dark. It's not the most fun topic in the world, but it is very satisfying.
But we each have a couple picks that are very fun, actually, and very entertaining to watch and enjoy. So you can enjoy those films and take out your vengeance thoughts or whatever, vengeful thoughts. Just put them into the movies that we just recommended. I had a blast.
What honorable mentions do you have?
Well, you took a couple of them, so I'm just going to reiterate Mandy, because everyone needs to watch Mandy. It's just so fun. It's a unique film. You can't really describe it. It really is one of those you have to just watch. If we're going to stick with like something that's just fun, maybe not based in the hyper violence, but Horrible Bosses is fucking hilarious.
That totally counts.
It totally counts, and it's very funny. There's another one that like no one ever heard of or watched, but I think it's definitely worth it. It's like this little independent film. It's called Becky. It has
I've seen the first one. Yes. I haven't seen the second one.
I haven't watched the second one yet, but the first one is so much better than I think people give it credit for. And it's crazy watching Kevin James play a skinhead.
Yeah, he has the big old swastika tattoo on his head. He's wild. He's good at it, shockingly.
He does a great job in it, yeah. And then I'm going to go with another Mel Gibson revenge story. I'm going to go with Edge of Darkness.
Okay,
it's like a kind of political thriller revenge film where he sets off to just get revenge, and the picture grows, and he kind of gets himself mixed up in a more corrupt system than he anticipated originally. But Edge of Darkness is a pretty powerful film for being more story-based than violence-based for a revenge film. So, yeah.
Totally. For me, I really wanted to fit Munich on the list because I feel like it's kind of a unique revenge story of these Jews at the Olympics were terrorized, and then basically a whole country government decides to take revenge on the people responsible. And then I had Payback and I had Kill Bill, but I had Gone Girl also because kind of a spoiler, but from the villain's perspective, I think she's a villain.
She's a hyper villain.
She is just getting revenge on her husband who's cheating on her and not treating her great, and so she does a very good job of getting revenge. She traps him and ruins his life.
Kind of like one of the most evil characters ever put on screen. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. So if you want revenge from a bad guy's perspective, I think that's a good one. And then A History of Violence. I liked quite a bit with Viggo Mortensen, and I haven't seen that many David Cronenberg movies, but that one stuck out for sure. And so. I think that's a good.
I think that's a good amount. All right.
What are we doing next episode?
Fuck me.
Actually, I think we're recording these out of order, which reminds me that we don't know what's coming out next. We have a gap in the next episode, but then we're doing our Lost franchise review for the 20th anniversary after that.
Getting ready for that. That'll be but that's still a little ways off.
Yeah. That is quite a ways off. Well, this will come out right after the Alien Deep Dive with Film versus Film.
Oh, yeah. So it looks like it's to be determined. Actually, we have a lot of TBD stuff right now, it looks like. So we're not sure what we're doing next, Jake.
We will be discussing that. We have a lot of options. Don't even worry. We're not going anywhere.
That's true.
Okay. So I think that's all.
What are your favorite revenge films? Let us know.
There you go.
Let us know if you disagree with any of our picks on being revenge films or not. They are. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let us know what kind of revenge films stick with you and all that. If you've seen the ones that we brought up, if you have seen The Gift or Lucky Number 11, please speak up and share it with everyone else because they're brilliant films. Please do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are looking for more episodes, if you're all caught up and you are aching for the next one because they only come out every 2 weeks, just join the fan club and you'll get We've started building up a backlog of extra episodes. They're just going to keep growing and we're going to keep making it better over time. So we appreciate you if you do that.
Yes, sir. Or ma'am. Yes, people.
And yes, sir, or ma'am. Whatever you are. All right. We'll leave it there before we get
in trouble.
Worse.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Peace.